So I'm pleased to introduce Corey Schwartz, who is the Managing Director of Communispace Health. She has over 15 years experience in client relationship management and demonstrated leadership in the social media and community space. Prior to Communispace, Corey spent 6 years at Wyeth Consumer Healthcare as a senior product manager. She managed brands such as Robitussin, Dimetapp, and Advil, among others. And fun fact about Corey is that she was born and raised in Boston, but she prides herself in not having a Boston accent. Today, Corey will talk about patient centricity and why relationships are critical for better health outcomes. Please join me in welcoming Corey to the stage. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm here to talk to you about patient centricity. Clearly a big deal and something that we all live with and immerse ourselves in on a daily basis. With technology and innovation, we have the opportunity to embrace both of those to truly deliver on patient centricity. And I'm going to talk to you about our perspective on how to do that. So I think the first fundamental question is, we're all focused on patient centricity, but what in fact truly is it? And in order to answer that, I'm going to recommend that we start with what it isn't. So what it isn't is doing things the same way we always used to do them before. It is not about one-off interactions in a manufactured setting. It is not just about observations of what others are doing in the moment. And it's not about a researcher going off and thinking about what questions they think to ask without also understanding the ongoing organic perspectives of the actual people that we're trying to understand. So that tells you a little bit about what we think it isn't. What it is about relationships, ongoing, longitudinal, intimate relationships. And so if we think about relationships and we think about the very term patient centricity, I think we could argue that the term is flawed because it talks about putting a patient at the center in a walled garden of sorts, when the very essence of what we're trying to achieve is to make sure patient realities are pervasive throughout our organizations and that their realities become our realities and are felt broadly throughout our organizations. Additionally, patient centricity, not to pick on the term too much, but also doesn't think about the fact that in fact there are other key stakeholders in the patient care ecosystem that are pivotal to making sure that better health outcomes are achieved. And therefore, we need an ongoing, integrated perspective of the caregivers, the patients, the providers, the nurse practitioners, the payers, you name it, the people that are involved in influencing the outcomes. We need that integrated perspective. And yet, relationships can seem scary and like a regulatory challenge, quite frankly, when we're talking about having these ongoing relationships with patients or caregivers or physicians. And yet, with systematic, scalable approaches to engagement in an ongoing manner, with the right regulatory prowess and the expertise and savvy that we need to truly be in it, through online communities and live workshops, we can, in fact, achieve what genuine, real patient centricity and all the benefits it brings with it can achieve. But what is the value of relationships, you might ask? Well, we've bucketed them into three critical benefits. One, they enable a broader perspective. They create intimacy and authenticity. And they incite action. So even companies with the very best intentions, even all of us with our very best intentions to be patient-centric, we only know the questions that we think to ask. And with that, we're missing the broader perspective of perhaps what's going on in the day-to-day lives and even the motivators behind the behaviors for these individuals, because we're not actually observing and understanding and engaging with them to bring forth what their perspective can enlighten us to do. Additionally, we all have relationships of various sorts with individuals, some more intimate than others. And yet, if we think about those relationships, we know that you can't ignore their perspectives, other people's perspectives. You have to integrate it into your thinking. You have to stop and own it. And they keep us honest. And so with that, I say, with relationships of any kind, we're creating a certain type of intimacy and authenticity, which is critical to delivering on true patient centricity. And finally, relationships incite action. When you understand and live on an ongoing way with what people are going through and hear them and listen to them, it's impossible not to be motivated to act and do something. As Lisa spoke earlier about the patients and the caregivers and the opportunities to help people live through their lives with the various conditions they have, when you hear those stories, you have to act to do something differently. So I'm going to ask you to stop and take a look at what real, intimate, ongoing relationships bring to the forefront. These are posters that were handwritten by various patients who have gastrointestinal conditions. And I'd argue it's pretty hard to move past this and not stop and think about what you can do about it. I have chronic pancreatitis. I am not anorexic. Gastrointestinal is not a dirty word. I'm not broken inside. I just need TLC. And one of my favorites, I sometimes think doctors and nurses think because I'm sick that I'm stupid too. These types of thoughts and real, honest, and intimate, candid emotions require us to stop and think and do differently. Additionally, I would ask all of you, as you think about your organizations, are you in fact being able to bring the everyday patient realities to your organizations in an immersive way so that they can see what it's like day in and day out to live with the real conditions that these people are living with? And when you're analyzing the research that you're doing through all the different approaches that you're taking into account, are you actually doing that in a manner that's allowing you to be surrounded by those patient realities while you're doing the actual analysis? Having immersion rooms in your office spaces is one of many ways to bring those realities to life. And finally, another way that I'm going to share with you is a video of making sure that the caregiver and patient experience and the candid and intimate environments come through and come to fruition throughout your organizations, and that you're then giving yourselves the opportunity to go back and reacquaint yourselves with these individuals over time, because as we know, every day changes happen. And so what you learn today could very well change tomorrow. So with that, we're going to attempt to play this video. Let's see how this works. There we go.
He was 9.5, and I noticed something was off because he had two friends over who were exactly the same age. And over the course of 2 hours, he came to me 3 or 4 times needing copious amounts of water.
I just was never satisfied with my thirst. So then that night we went to the doctor's office and they said I had type 1 diabetes.
I looked at the pediatrician, tears coming down because I didn't really understand fully what it was. And there our new life began.
I think the biggest struggle for me is I'll be playing a sport and I just have to stop and I can't play for the next 15 minutes, and sometimes that can be the rest of the game, and that frustrates me a lot. I love sports and I love school, and sometimes I don't understand what's going on in class because I can't focus because my blood sugar's high or it's low.
Christopher has to check his blood 8 to 10 times a day. The nighttime tends to be frightening for me and my husband as parents because it's a time of unknown. My alarm clock on my iPhone is ridiculous, and depending on the night, I'm up at all of those alarms.
The biggest fear is I'm going to be going to sleep one night and I just won't wake up. There's been some nights where I've woken up in complete cold sweats and I've just crawled downstairs and just eaten everything I've seen in sight. And I'm worried one day, what's gonna happen if I can't crawl downstairs or get juice?
I guess I was naive when he was diagnosed because we had private insurance. My husband was working for a great company, and I figured, well, this will be no problem. It's very expensive. It's been a huge impact on our family financially. We try to maintain a certain level of different foods at the house that he likes to eat and that are healthy so that he's feeling better. There's some really great places where you can find community online because they're so in the trenches with it and living really moment to moment.
So in the future, I hope to be an endocrinologist for children because my doctors have been amazing to me and I really want to pass it on, help more kids. Don't let it be a barrier in your life. Just overcome it and you will go through it, and don't let diabetes ever stop you.
Pretty remarkable, and I think we'd all agree it's impossible not to want to continue to do more for people like Christopher and his mother. So now, somewhat interactive part is let's see if you're walking the talk. So a couple questions here. What do you do when you want to know more about your customers? Do you read reports, set up periodic transactional research, or engage with customers in an ongoing way? Can you identify specific instances where customers have participated in iterative development of beyond the pill initiatives? And have you ever had stakeholders across the patient care ecosystem provide integrated perspectives, perhaps even at live events? So this gives you a feel for some of the types of questions. There are many more that you could probably ask yourselves to determine how you're doing on a scale of customer centricity and immersing your organizations in such a way. At this point, I want to just leave with 3 critical ways that we would recommend to help your organization benefit from authentic relationships with consumers. The first of which is creating ongoing connections with all the stakeholders in the patient care ecosystem. We'd argue to let them be your referee, your inspiration, and frankly, your North Star. Enable broad consumer immersion to drive action within the companies that you're at. And actually look to design relationships into the development process itself. So with that, I will close in terms of just the value of relationships and how pivotal they truly are in our quest for patient centricity.
Questions for Corey? Well, there's one there.
We have one here.
Okay.
Hi, Corey.
Hello.
At the beginning, you mentioned that it wasn't focus groups, it wasn't IDIs, it wasn't ethnographies. So, in a simpler way, as you can explain it, what is it? I mean,
Great
I know
question.
it's ongoing, right, but in what manner is that ongoing relationship or that ongoing conversation happening?
It's great. So to be clear, it's not that I would never argue that all of those aren't exceptionally valid and critical methods for engagement. It's that them alone, in siloed, and not actually getting to know people. The way that we do it is through online, ongoing private communities and live workshops with the very individuals that are there. But it's about white glove facilitation of getting to genuinely understand and know these individuals very closely and being able to see how their life changes over time, and to be able to talk to them about not only what we want to talk to them about, but also what they want to talk to each other about. So it's about enabling the relationships with each other and with all of us and with our organizations to bring to life that, the more of the organic perspectives. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes.
We got microphones coming from both directions, so we'll see who gets there first.
Yes. The race is on.
Goes to Greg. Hats off to Greg. As researchers, I think we've always worried about this kind of Heisenberg principle about what we're up to, that we can only engage with the people who are willing to engage with us. You know, and I think we've all worried about the potential for bias that may sort of surround the information that you get from a group of people who have been the ones who are willing to sign up to give you information.
Right.
So I'm curious what your sense of that issue is around communities. Where, if at all, you've run into it, what, if anything, you do to kind of reflect on it, measure it, think about it. What role does that play in getting data from a group such as a community-space online community?
So 2 points to that, because those are very, very real issues. Positive bias is certainly an issue that we have spent considerable times and continually research and look at. And what we have found is that if you're bringing them in just to do research and answer questions, then you could in fact risk skewing their awareness and having the people that are most engaged in, frankly, living and being a patient versus being a person who is struggling to live their life recognizing that they're a patient. The difference is being able to give them an exclusive, intimate, private place for them to be able to share and talk with each other, so that their motivation isn't necessarily to make sure companies hear them, although that's a nice perk. But the real motivation is to be able to talk to the very people who are living the same day-to-day realities and struggles in some shade similar to them, and how they can learn from those individuals. So in that's how you keep it real and you keep it honest, and you make it about them and not necessarily about the research agenda, while of course still very much focused on answering the research questions you need to make change happen in your organizations. And I think the other piece to that is just in terms of, it depends on what the research objective is. And then just like anything, you have to design appropriately, whether it's in a community or in any other type of research, exactly how you're going to make sure that you are eliminating areas such as positive bias or whatnot. And you do that based off of how you craft the questions or who you pull in to ask those questions to. So there might be opportunities where you need to bring in some fresh perspectives. And then there may be times where it's about how you craft the questions and how you orchestrate the private groups within those communities that you talk to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.